Hi, I'm Brandon Poe, founder of Poe Group Advisors and creator of the Accounting Practice Academy. You are listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast, where we talk about stuff in the accounting world. If you're looking to buy or sell a practice, we are the premier accounting practice intermediary firm in the industry. Check us out at pogroupadvisors.com. If you're a firm owner looking to build a more profitable practice while actually reducing owner hours, sign up for our practice management workshop, which only runs a few times per year. Learn more at accountingpracticeacademy.com. All right, welcome to Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. I'm pleased to introduce you to Bruce Coombes from all the way from Australia, who it's actually summer in Australia here. We're recording in January. It's like middle of summer in Australia, which is kind of cool. So a little bit about Bruce. He qualified as a chartered accountant in 1985 and has spent his entire career with or providing solutions to the accounting profession. Bruce is founder of both QuickFee Australia and QuickFee US, having overseen the business from startup through its IPO. Wow, until June 30, and then you transitioned to the role of managing director, Australia. You were previously a partner in the accounting firm. All right, let me see if I'm saying this right, Bruce. Macquarie Partners, now part
Macquarie.
of
Macquarie Partners.
Macquarie. All right,
Yeah.
Thank you. Bruce introduced outsourcing as a solution for Australian accounting firms. The business he created, Accounting Resourcing, was ultimately acquired by a major financial institution. He has a Bachelor of Business in Accounting from the University of Technology, Sydney, and completed a graduate diploma of Chartered Accounting with the Institute of Chartered Accountants Australia, which is now combined with New Zealand. Welcome, Bruce.
Hey, it's great to be here, Brandon. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, well, so QuickFee, real quick, like, what is QuickFee? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we're a payment gateway for CPA firms in the United States, and the unique feature of our payment gateway is if clients want to pay in full, yep, they can do that. But if they need time to pay, we'll actually provide a payment plan, and the firm still gets paid in full.
Nice. Now, how long have you been in the U.S. market?
We've been in the US 5.5 years now, Brandon. It was been a fantastic journey. It's been amazing. I've been able to get over to the Carolinas, been over where you live, right up to Boston, all the way down to Florida, and lots of other great places. It's been a fantastic journey.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested in the IPO. Like, that's got to be, you went from startup to IPO, and that must have been a wild ride. I'm curious about that. Like, what's the IPO experience like?
But just before we did the IPO, somebody said to me, "You'll do one in your life, and there's never a truer word spoken." It is one of the most intense things. I think any of the CPAs listed that have been involved with a client IPO would know every single word has to be supported in that IPO document. It's an amazing ride. But it's worth it in terms of access to capital. Fantastic.
Yeah. So are you guys growing are you on a tear here in the US?
Yeah.
It's a growing industry.
Our US business is growing, 40 to 50% a year. In the start of the pandemic, our business doubled in 6 weeks. And that was because people don't want to be banking checks. They don't want to be going to the post office. They don't want to be going to the bank. Like a lot of CPA firms, they didn't even open the office. So they needed online payments. And that was an amazing ride for us to double your business in 6 weeks. That was incredible.
Yeah. We use online payments for Accounting Practice Academy, and it's really nice. And you can have a payment plan like you talk about, and you just don't even have to think about it. You set it and forget it. And
And the interesting thing is, like, we survey not just the CPA firms that use us, we actually survey the clients, and they absolutely love it, because a lot of them in the surveys have said, "Hey, I could get advice that I didn't think I'd be able to afford because they got a payment plan to pay it off."
Yeah. Come to think of it, my CPA actually bills me quarterly like that. It's just an auto pay.
Yeah, it's great.
So it's so let's talk a little bit. You've been supporting the industry for a very long time. What are the trends you're seeing, both in Australia and here in the US?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think anybody listening wouldn't be surprised to see the growth in CAS, in the client advisory services, or whether you want to call it business advisory service, whatever, term you want to give it, and how that's sort of moved the profession more towards a fixed billing model, a model where the clients are getting a package. You see CPA firms now where you go to their website and it says, look, our bronze package is this, our silver package is this one, our gold one is a little bit more, and the clients make an investment every month for access to their CPA. And that's been really quite common in Australia, where the online accounting systems like Xero and QuickBooks and all that have been pretty much adopted by every business. And in the UK, quite common in the UK. You think of the UK as a very traditional sort of place. There is a lot of really advanced CPA firms in the UK providing a really wide range of services, and that's growing in the United States as well.
Why do you think the United States might be a little bit behind the curve on that?
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to use language so much as behind the curve, but I mean, I think the rate of adoption has been slower because firms in the US deal with probably the most complicated tax system in the world. There's very few countries actually have 50 state taxes, and then you got to deal with sales taxes in every state, which can vary from county to county. And then you got your federal tax, and I think the IRS does a pretty good job of keeping the printers in business, generating more laws every sort of week. And a CPA can live off that sort of compliance work quite well. So the impetus to change has been slower. I'll give you an example, Brandon. In the UK, where you have a value-added tax in place of sales taxes, right? Literally over there, the inland revenue reaches into the client's online accounting software, pulls out the data they need, and generates the sales tax return like that. There is no work for the CPA to generate returns.
Oh, wow. Well, that's just interesting because I've never heard this explanation before, but it makes sense. We do also business in Canada, so I'm pretty familiar with business, how that's operated there. I think a lot of those clients do have U.S. taxes involved as well. So I guess there could be some complexity that just kind of spills over from that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. It's interesting. You're right, because there's so many compliance-centered CPA firms in the U.S.
Yeah.
And, I've been a proponent of kind of getting into more of the advisory services. And I feel like business owners could benefit from that so much. And it's sometimes frustrating. It's like, why don't accountants do that more? But they're so busy with their compliance practice.
Well, and and also like right now, it's middle January. So we're about to go into tax season again, right? We're about to see 15 April come up, as fast as a jet sort of thing, and say, look, what happened? How are we going to get all the work done or whatever, right? Now that's a terribly intense period, not just for the accountant, but for all of their team as well. Whereas if you're doing business advisory, that's the same steady flow throughout the year. You don't have that compliance peak. Like, there are firms in Australia who don't do any tax. They do no tax returns. They actually give the tax work to another accountant to do, so they can spend the whole year on a steady pattern of just doing business advisory.
Yeah, that's probably a really smart strategy. Yeah, I like that. Any other trends to mention?
It's interesting, Brandon, because when you're doing tax or you're doing audit and attest work and all that, you tend to be answering questions. Like, should this be disclosed in the balance sheet? Can this thing be claimed on my IRS tax return? Whatever, right? When you're doing business advisory, you're asking questions. You're asking the client, hey, where do you want to go? You're going to open another store? Are you thinking about going to another state, national? What do you want to do? That, if you want to talk about a trend, it's that shift in the profession from answering questions to asking them.
Yeah. Well, that's a really clear way to look at it. I like that. And it's so true. And, in sales and what we do, it's very advisory type work. And I always tell my team, it's all about the right questions. It's all about asking the right questions. So
yeah, look, absolutely. A CPA is an expert in numbers, is a smart person, well educated, et cetera, et cetera. So they're not going to know the client's business as well as the client knows it. But if you know the questions to ask, the client's probably got the answers. They just haven't been asked the right questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Well, are you seeing more of that adopted? I'm seeing more of that adopted here in the US. I am
Yeah,
seeing more of it, and it's a welcome.
definitely.
Yeah.
And I think you're seeing as QBO continues to be adopted. It's the most widely used online platform in the United States. As you get more and more clients that are comfortable with having their figures online, the accountant's getting live access. You're getting live, real-time information, which you can't get if it's if it's some sort of system where the client's got to send you some reports or all that sort of stuff. So that absolutely helps to drive up adoption by not just the firm, but by the clients. And I suppose that leads to that overall chat around digitization. What does this digitization of the CPA profession mean, right? And more firms are delivering their annual taxes to the clients with an online portal. They're using one of the products out there, whether it's from one of the major vendors or others, to deliver the tax returns. Safe Send Returns is a really cool little product which actually finds the signing pages inside the client's 1040 or whatever it is and delivers them to the clients. The client knows exactly where to sign and send it back along with the rest of the return. So things like that are making delivery of services, especially this time, easier to do without printing off reams and reams of paper. And clearly that's something I see firms adopt all the time now.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're seeing like a lot of our academy clients have made the decision to not focus so much on the individual tax business, like really kind of seeing a lot of steering away from just freestanding individual tax returns.
Yeah.
And just doing tax returns for the business clients.
And that's a global trend too, Brandon. There are plenty of firms that won't do an individual tax return unless it's part of a business group. There's just it's commoditization in the extreme, and where's the value add? And it's just a line at your door right through to 15 April. Do you really want to do that?
Yeah, and I mean there's a place for it. I think there's definitely firms that just sort of create a machine and do a lot of them, and that's a good business. But yeah, I'm with you there.
It's interesting, but another, like I say, that a firm which chooses to specialize in, say, individual tax can do it very well. You build a machine around it, build a really strong onboarding and data collection process. So I think both of us know that one of the biggest problems in an accounting firm is the data collation process. If the client actually gave you everything you needed, doing their taxes actually isn't that bad, right? And you have a client for 10 years and they still can't get you everything you need in the first meeting or whatever, right? Yeah. But if you get all that right, you can build a great individual tax business. But equally, another trend, I think, and I've seen this, in Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Canada, is, and certainly in the States as well, is the importance of specialization, right? You can't be all things to all people, right? So there are some amazing CPA firms that specialize, for example, in a certain industry. It might be the restaurant industry, it might be the motor vehicle industry lends itself to it really well. You see some really solid firms that are experts in motor vehicle retail and servicing and all that. Firms which specialize in something tend to be more profitable, less stressful, and really are adding true value to their clients.
Yeah. I'll tack one on to you as well as a trend. I think that the staffing challenges are really forcing some change in this industry in a good way. I tell my sellers all the time, like, if your hours are really, really high and you're trying to put high hours on your staff, you're not going in the right direction, especially if you want to sell your business. But I think people are seeing that those higher hours create more turnover. So I think the importance of getting your business to where it's not overwhelming is really, really more and more important, and getting that firm culture. I used to think firm culture was a little bit of a luxury, I mean, because I came up, when they would just tell you how many days you would work and how many hours you would work, and you were just supposed to say okay, and that's different now. And
Totally, Brandon. Look, I think there's plenty of headlines about the Great Resignation. I think for CPA firms, that's been the case for longer than it has been for other industries. I think we all know that that the staff have choices, and with working remote, you can work for any PwC office from anywhere in the United States. You can be an employee of the New York office and work from Florida, right? So, I heard this great story about this accountant, and they were actually on like a working holiday in the States. So when this pandemic thing came along, they literally had like an RV. So they would drive somewhere new in the United States, spend the weekend there, then just jump online Monday through Friday, working away, then drive somewhere new. They basically done a tour of the whole United States and kept working. Now, when staff have options like that, right, and even a less extreme option than that, they'll move if your firm isn't giving them the flexibility they want. It's in the hands of the staff, not in the hands of the partners.
Yeah, it really is. And it's so hard for people to adjust to that. Like it's just a completely different mindset to managing in this world if you're used to the old style.
Yeah, I spoke to the CFO of a top 10 law firm, and he said to me, he says, honestly, this pandemic has been a gift. We've got stuff done in 6 weeks that would normally take us 6 years to get approval to do. And I think if you're able to sort of go, well, let's embrace the change that's been given to us, and let's accept that if we need to keep an eye on our people, they're probably the wrong people. If you've got to keep an eye on a staff member, then why have you recruited them?
I agree. And if you let people do their thing, you kind of know if they're not, right? You know it comes out eventually.
Especially in accounting firms, right? You can measure output, right? You know what's being built. When we had our BPO business, this is years ago when I had my BPO business, right? We had no timesheets, right? The staff didn't do any timesheets at all. We had a fixed billing model, and the staff's bonuses was just a function of how much revenue they generated. Now, if you didn't want to work too hard, that's okay. You didn't get much of a bonus. But if you really wanted to work, and we had one guy who was saving up for his wedding, so he really, really worked hard. We had to actually push him out the doors. I mean, you got to go home sometimes, But yeah. he got 7 months' pay as his bonus. Now, you can measure so easily in a CPA firm output. So, you don't need to keep an eye on a team in an office.
Yeah, and you remove that coercion, it makes the culture is just so much better. And
yeah. It's the most junior people, the fresh grads, people with 1 or 2 years experience. They're the ones who you need to have some sort of structured system, and that could well be come to the office so that they're learning from the more seniors. But as they become quite productive and they've got their own client group, etc., they're really, if they're billing the hours or not.
Yeah, I've had that experience in my own team. If I bring them in to train them as brokers, they do kind of need to be in to they're just that I don't know, the water cooler talk for one thing is really helpful, and just being able to pop in another office and go, hey, I'm stuck here or whatever. I do think that's important. But once they got that, I mean, we have team. I have a team member in California, one in New Orleans, and one about 2 hours from here, and they're senior, and they just they know what they're doing. So
I think for CPA firms, it's very important for them to have that acknowledgement that for this group of people, we're going to have to be quite directive until they're trained up properly, and then once they are, if they want to work from Colorado, let them. If they want to ski on a Friday and work on a Saturday, does it really matter? I'm a non-executive director of an orthodontic practice, kids braces and all this stuff, right? One of the best things we did was we got a couple of the orthodontists who are mothers, so they wanted to work on Saturdays. But of course, the clients think it's the greatest thing ever. They don't need to take time off school or work or whatever it might be. So you're being flexible with your team, and you're actually giving your clients a better service. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, we're learning all kinds of stuff right now, aren't we? I mean, it's just you're right. It's time to embrace it. Well, I think you don't have any choice but to change at this point. If you're in the profession, there won't be too many people around that are doing things the old way. They won't make it.
Yeah. I think, Brandon, I think you'd know that like Jack Welch, the former CEO of GE, he said the pace of change on the outside exceeds the pace of change on the inside, the end is nigh. And when I look at your business and what you do with helping CPA firms exit and merge and all those things, right? Succession is such a big issue. I mean, like how many CPAs are my age, mate? This is we're the baby boomers. We're on the way to the exit, and we've got to make sure somebody wants our business. It's our nest egg for many of us. It's a major part of our net wealth.
You hit the nail on the head. We got to make sure somebody wants our business. You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, and that's not a firm where the partners are all proud of how many hours they built. That's not lifestyle. You're trying to sell to somebody who's 20, 30 years younger than you. They don't want to look like you, right? Billing 1,600 hours or whatever it might be is not a badge of honor when you're 35 with 2 kids, right? So you gotta have a firm which is more and more self-sufficient, so the new partners coming in can do exactly what it is they want to do, not what you've been doing.
Yeah. And I do think that pricing, you talked about the pricing model, which definitely ties into your business with QuickFee, is if you can get the pricing right in a practice, and you can get the billing model right in a practice, it just has a ripple effect through the whole firm. Like it to me is almost, if a CPA comes to me and they're trying to get their practice ready for market, and we've got 4 things that are pretty clear, like low hanging fruit, pricing's usually going to be one of those 4. And if they can only work on one out of the 4, it's probably pricing is what I see.
I think that's absolutely right. And also, I think we've all heard the expression, they're not a client unless they pay. Okay, billing hours and not getting paid, mate, you might as well have a vacation in Hawaii, right? It's a lot more fun. You make exactly the same amount of money, right? Yeah. So, they're not a client unless they pay. And when you look at some of the firms that you go to sell, Brandon, if you've got a lot of working capital, a lot of WIP, a lot of receivables all sitting there in lockup, that's a harder business to sell. I mean, we brought payment plans to the United States. We basically remain the only CPA-focused provider the payment plans 5 years later, right? And we brought them because CPAs are often paid slower than most other businesses. Now, that's working capital that a buyer is going to have to find in any succession. If you can remove that barrier to people wanting to buy a practice, improve the pricing, improve collections, reduce lockup, hey, the business is a lot more saleable.
Yeah, and just the headache of having to try to collect, is just, that's the biggest waste of time you can have in running a business, is making collection calls. And
a top 100 firm managing partner told me they spend 9,600 unchargeable hours on collections and billing. Now, that's like winning a major client, right? 9,600 hours. That's probably your biggest client, right? Yeah. You got to get rid of that. Now, we've got a tool which actually automates collections for any CCH product. Anybody listening here using Access or CCH Pro system, we've got a product which will literally send automatic reminders, totally customizable by the firm, to clients to remind them to pay. Get rid of those crazy unbillable hours and turn them into business advisory services, marketing, or golf days, whatever you want.
Now, do you have a presence in Canada as well?
We don't. We're not in Canada right now. No, we're not, Brandon. So the United States is such an enormous market. Like for an Australian businessman, the United States is your dream, right? That's the dream of every Aussie businessman, is to conquer the States. So we're focused. We're in every state of the US, but we're focused on the US right now.
Yeah. Well, you got a lot of Canadian listeners on this podcast, so if you want to get
Canadian firms are great. The Canadian firms are a little more Australian almost, partly because the way the banking system is a little bit more like ours, and bits and pieces, and Xero, XERO, they've had a really good run in Canada. whereas QBO just dominates in the US. So Canada's a good market. It's a beautiful country. A bit cold right now.
Yeah, a bit cold. Yeah, yeah. We have a really good presence in Canada, and I had a just to s- side note here for a minute. Like I had um, quite experience going into that market 10 or 15 years ago. We've been, I guess, 15 years ago we went into that market,
Wow.
and there's just some little tweaks about how business is done that are
Yeah,
different. And at first it was confusing, and now it's like this is really kind of nice. Like I don't know, the pace of business. I think is U.S. is
yeah,
very people want things. There's
yeah,
a little more quickness to timetables.
yeah,
Like little things like return phone calls, email returns.
yeah,
Uh, anyway, just some little
yeah,
subtle differences.
yeah.
But
Yes.
yeah, love working in Canada. So what do you think about being constantly busy in your firm? What do you think about
What do
that
they say?
busyness?
The busy busyness of busyness. It's not a badge of honor to be busy. When you meet somebody at a social, oh, you've been busy. Yeah, I've been busy. Like you know, hey, you've been busy. No, actually, my practice is going so well, and my golf handicap's dropped by 3 shots. I'm skiing more. I'm playing tennis. I'm seeing my grandkids. What's wrong with saying that? I've got this one of our QuickFee clients. This guy, sole practitioner, probably got maximum 10, 12 staff. He makes $1 million profit a year and works 3 days a week. So you say, hey, Ray, how's it going? He goes, mate, I'm not busy. I'm making $1 million. How good is this? Right now, that's where you want to be. There is not look at all the technology. God, we're surrounded by technology. Look, we're using Zoom, across the Pacific Ocean here, and halfway across the States, right? You don't need to be busy. You don't need to be busy. In fact, simple supply and demand, Brandon, right? People are lining up for CPA services. The COVID thing, everybody needed to know about triple P and everything else, right? Supply and demand, put the price up. Get rid of your D-class clients, then start getting rid of your C-class clients. And
Yep.
work with good. A partner at Deloitte, I know, he has 35 clients. That was his ambition. He said to me, I've always wanted to have only 35 clients, and I've got there. Now,
Yeah.
how good is that? And imagine how good those clients are.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm reminded of a paper I wrote with Rob Siegfried, who owns a pretty large firm here in the U.S. And his goal is get to 0 billable hours personally,
Yeah. Yep.
managing the
Yep.
firm. And a lot of partners in mid-sized firms says you can't do that. You can't just go to 0. He's like, yeah, well, I'm going to, and he did,
Yep. It can be
and
done.
it can be
Yeah.
done.
If
Yeah,
if every time you go out and see a client, you get more work. What are you doing sitting in the office? Right? You can employ accountants, and you can pay them a lot of money if they're doing the high value work to do the work, and you go and enjoy. I love meeting the clients. I love seeing people. It's the best part of being a CPA is the clients, and when they're happy with what you've done. Sometimes when they leave your office relieved. That's enjoyable. And that's not going to happen doing tax. I've been to partners' offices, and you can't see the desk for the sea of tax returns sitting there, and you go, like, but can't you employ somebody to do this?
yeah, yeah. It's no, I'm with you.
And I
It's
mean, one
it's
of the
hard
things
when you're
I do,
buried. It's hard to see how to go from there to that when you're buried in the day to day.
yeah, think about if you go back to your college days, right? And not the partying part of college, but the studying part of college, right? And you think about how much you can get done when you really had to get an assignment done and had to get it out, get it finished, get it submitted to the professor or whatever it was, right? And there could be 3 or 4 hours, but uninterrupted. It's amazing how much you can do. And one of the things I do, and we train our team to do, is treat the week as 10 half days. So you don't jump from this to that. You don't jump from an email to a phone call. You don't answer the phone just it happens to be ringing, right? It's a machine. You are a human. You do not have to do what the machine says, right? So we invented voicemail a long time ago. It still works, okay? So they can leave a message. Then do all your phone calls, bang, in one hit. Email,
Yeah,
one hit, finished. Now I can focus 4 hours on that strategy paper for that client, or I can
yeah,
spend 4 hours thinking through how we're going to market our firm in a specialized area.
Yeah.
Don't let them control you. You control your week.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think, one of the biggest things that people struggle with is email.
Oh,
I wish, I wish there was like a magic solution for email. That would be,
there's I'll give you two little tips. Number
yeah,
one, there's a product called Carbon. It's Carbon with a K,
yeah,
KARBONHQ.com. I don't have any vested interest in that company. It's not an endorsement or anything, but I know the guys. They're up in San Francisco. And what it does is it basically treats each email as a task. So if it's send me a copy of my tax return, you give the email in Carbon to somebody who can do that. It might even be the client manager. It doesn't need to be. It could be any person in the office could do that, right? It's very similar to the way financial advisors work. They treat everything as a thread, is their words, like a task, rather than client-centric. It's task-centric. The second one I'd say is I have a rule in my Outlook, and if my name is in the CC box, it automatically moves it to another folder. Because if I'm not in the two, well, it can't be for me. So that's
right.
fine.
It's just for you to see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. That's, I do think people struggle with their email and the distractions, and it's scaling. Do you have any good books about scaling? I know there's Vern Harnish's book, Scaling.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to recommend Vern Harnish. And the single page business plan and all that stuff in Vern's book. Like, I'm a true believer. I think for a CPA, if you can download like a Vern Harnish podcast or any sort of the scaling up type stuff, listen to it on the way to a client or driving to the office or driving to golf or whatever it is. Some best time. You can just, you don't have to listen to Casey Kasem counting down the top 40, that's for sure, right?
Yeah.
So I do like Vern Harnish's stuff. I think there's a lot of gems in there. There's a book, there's a book on the Afterpay story, the buy now, pay later, the Afterpay thing that, you see it all through the shopping centers in, all around the world, in the US as well. A really interesting book on how they build a business basically from a front bedroom of a house to something they just sold to Square. So for $39 billion or whatever it is, right? So it's an interesting book.
Wow. Well, what do you think is new on the horizon for CPAs? Any thoughts about things that aren't there yet, but they're coming?
I don't say. I think there'll be a trend, and some early adopter firms will be on this, of employing non-CPAs in CPA firms, right? KPMG employ non-accountants in their audit practice, okay? Because you look at tools like Caseware and some of the really sophisticated financial statement preparation tools and that, they're smarter than a graduate accountant's going to be, right? They're going to do it. They know what to disclose and what notes to put where and what remuneration needs to be disclosed, all this sort of carry on, right? But somebody who has like a psychology background, somebody who has a scientific background, could be really helpful supplement to a group of accountants doing a test work or trying to work out what a business might be worth or how the DD process is going to run, helping a client on an M&A deal or whatever. So I think you'll see a shift where accounting firms won't necessarily be made up entirely of accountants. And another thing I think accountants in the US can grab, takes the business back from the attorneys. Why have we let the attorneys have succession planning, estate planning? Why have we done that? They don't have any right to that. We understand numbers. We should have that. So take some of that work back off the attorneys. They got plenty of money. They don't need it. So I think expanding the service range and using non-accountants will be an interesting trend.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, this has been great, Bruce. I really appreciate you coming on our podcast. And what's the best way for people to find you?
Okay. You? So you can find me at Bruce at QuickFee.com. So our website in the States is QuickFee.com. I'm Bruce at QuickFee.com. Or if you want to just give me a call, my US number 310-584-1173. But just go to QuickFee.com and you'll find everything you need right there.
Awesome. And we'll put that in the blog post in the notes. So if you want to go there, check it out. Bruce, thank you so much.
Thanks for the opportunity, Brandon. It's been great. You have a great evening.
Thanks for listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. If you like what you heard today, please follow us so that you can get updates when new episodes are released, and share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. You can also follow Poe Group Advisors on social media. Please visit our website for more information at poegroupadvisors.com.